I want you to picture a Tuesday afternoon in October, ordinary in every way. Sky was that kind of pale gray that hasn't decided whether to rain or not. I was driving home from a job I'd had for 11 years. Same route, same exit, same left turn onto Clover Mill Road. And somewhere between that left turn and my driveway, a pickup truck ran a red light doing maybe 50 miles an hour and hit my car so hard that the airbags deployed before I even understood what was happening. I walked away. Physically, I was okay. Shaken, but okay. The car was not. It was on its side. Driver's door crushed down to the console. Windshield spiderwebbed completely. A woman stopped and asked if I needed an ambulance. I said no. I called my wife. I called the police. I did everything right. What I didn't know yet, what nobody warned me about, was that the real fight wasn't the accident. The real fight was about to start the morning I filed my claim. And that fight lasted 7 months. 7 months of phone calls that went nowhere, letters that said nothing, and a company that had taken my premiums every single month for 9 years, acting like I was the enemy. Let me back up a little. Because for this story to make any sense, you have to understand what that car meant to me. I'm not someone who splurges. I've never bought a new car. I've never taken a vacation that cost more than $1,000. But in 2019, after 12 years of driving a 2006 Civic that smelled like fast food and refused to run the AC in July, I saved up and bought a 2017 Honda Accord. 2 owners before me, 61,000 miles, midnight blue metallic, paid $14,200, cash. That car was my independence. I used it to drive my daughter to school. I used it to take my mother to her Wednesday appointments. I used it to get to and from a job that is 40 minutes each way, not a commute you can do on a bus. And for 9 years, I had been paying $187 a month to a company I'd never had a single problem with. I had never filed a claim, not once. Perfect record, perfect account. 9 years of premiums, 0 claims. And when the one day came that I finally needed them, here is exactly what they did. October 14th, 4:47 in the afternoon. I was the second car at a red light on Fletcher Avenue. Light turned green. The car in front of me went. I started moving. I was maybe 6 feet into the intersection when I heard it. That sound. If you've ever been in a serious accident, you know the sound I'm talking about. It's not a bang. It's more like the world ending for about half a second. The F-150 came from the left, side street, running a solid red. Witnesses later confirmed it. He hit me at the front driver's quarter panel, and the impact spun my car about 90 degrees before it came to rest against the curb. My airbag deployed. My coffee mug shattered against the passenger seat. My phone, which was in the center console, ended up somehow on the back seat floor. I sat there for maybe 15 seconds. Couldn't hear anything. Hands shaking, ears ringing. The first thing I thought was, my wife doesn't know where I am right now. The second thing I thought was, I have my insurance card in the glove box. I've always kept it there, ready for this exact moment. Except I had no idea, none, that having your insurance card ready means absolutely nothing when the company behind it decides the rules don't apply. The other driver got out of his truck. He looked scared. He was young, maybe 23. He didn't run. He called 911 himself, actually. He stayed at the scene. The police report was clear. Failure to obey traffic signal, Fault assigned 100% to the other driver. I had two witnesses, a woman who'd seen the whole thing from the bus stop, an older man walking his dog. Both gave statements. The officer wrote everything down. My car was towed from the scene. I got a ride home from a coworker who happened to drive by. I sat in my kitchen that night looking at the police report number on a yellow sticky note. And I thought, this is going to be okay. I have insurance. I have witnesses. I have documentation. This is exactly what insurance exists for. I was so confident that night. If I'd known what the next 7 months actually looked like, I would have started recording everything immediately. I didn't. And that's the first lesson of this story. I filed the claim the next morning. Online portal, which felt easy enough. Uploaded the police report. Uploaded the photos I had taken at the scene. Uploaded my contact information. The confirmation email said, "A claims representative will contact you within 1 to 2 business days." They called 4 days later. The adjuster, I'll call him Tyler because that was his name, was polite, professional sounding. He said all the right things. He said he was sorry about my accident. He said the claim looked straightforward. He said the other driver's fault assignment was already noted. He said the vehicle would be inspected within the next week and we'd move from there. The inspector came out 8 days after I filed. He spent about 40 minutes with the car. He took photographs. He used some kind of laptop device to run numbers. He was quiet and efficient. When he was done, he said, and I remember this specifically, the damage is significant. I expect the company will be reaching out soon about their determination. That word, determination. I didn't think much of it at the time. I thought it was just jargon. 11 days later, I got a letter. I actually smiled when I saw it, standing at the mailbox, because I thought, finally, this is the check. This is over. It wasn't a check. It was 3 pages. And by the time I finished reading them, I understood that nothing about this situation was going to be easy. The letter said my vehicle had been declared a total loss. That part I actually expected. The damage was severe enough. I'd done the math myself. But then it got to the valuation section. They had assessed my car's actual cash value, the ACV, which is the number they base their payout on, at $8,750. $8,750. For a car I bought for $14,200 4 years ago. For a car that had 71,000 miles, no accidents on the Carfax, new tires 6 months prior, recent brake job. I immediately went online and searched for comparable 2017 Accords in my state. Every single listing, 12 of them, was between $12,800 and $15,400. I called Tyler. He was still polite, still professional. He explained that the valuation had been calculated using a third-party market analysis tool that takes into account regional pricing variations and negotiation adjustments typically achieved at point of sale. He actually said that. Negotiation adjustments. That phrase means they had programmed a software to assume I would haggle at a dealership and then reduced my payout in advance because of what they expected I might save. I told him I had found 12 comparable vehicles in my area, all listed above $12,000. He said the comparables had already been factored into the model. I asked which comparables. He couldn't tell me. I asked for the specific data points used in the calculation. He said he'd have to submit a request for that information. That request, by the way, was never fulfilled. This was the moment something shifted in me. Not anger, not yet. Something quieter. The thought that kept coming back was, this is not a mistake. They know exactly what they're doing. And they're betting I'll just accept it and go away. Now, let me pause here for a moment, because this is where a lot of people completely misunderstand how insurance companies calculate total loss payouts. And if you don't understand this part, you will almost always accept less than you're owed. I almost did. According to standard procedure, when an insurance company declares your vehicle a total loss, meaning the cost to repair it exceeds a certain percentage of its estimated value, they are required to pay you the actual cash value, or ACV, of your vehicle at the time of the loss. The ACV is not what you paid for the car. It's not what you could sell it for tomorrow. It's a calculated number. And here is where the problem lives. That calculation is done by software. Third-party software that insurance companies pay licensing fees to use. There have been multiple class action lawsuits filed against major insurers, including a case in Arkansas where a jury found that State Farm's valuations software had underpaid 37,000 customers. The software factored in a projected negotiation discount, the assumption that a buyer will haggle at a dealership and get a lower price, and then reduced every single payout based on that assumption, before the customer even showed up to buy anything. From a legal standpoint, what you are allowed to do, and what very few people know they can do, is formally dispute the valuation through a process called an appraisal demand. Most insurance policies in the United States contain an appraisal clause. It's buried, usually around page 11 or 12, but it's there. That clause gives you the right to hire your own independent appraiser. The insurer hires theirs. If they disagree, a neutral umpire decides. Companies hate this process because independent appraisers tend to value cars closer to what they're actually worth. I didn't know any of this the first time Tyler called me, but I was about to find out all of it. The weekend after I got the denial letter, I did something I probably should have done before I ever filed the claim. I spent 11 hours reading the internet. Reddit was where I started, specifically a subreddit called r/insurance. And what I found there was honestly disturbing. Not because the stories were unusual, because they weren't. Because hundreds of people had posted the same story. Different names, different states, different accidents, same exact playbook. Low initial offer, much lower than market value. Polite, professional adjuster who can't explain how the number was calculated. The offer letter presented as if it's final and non-negotiable. Silence or vague responses if you push back. Time pressure. Accept within a certain window, or the offer may change. This is a psychological trap, and it's a sophisticated one. It relies on three things. Most people don't know they can dispute the valuation. Most people are in a stressful, emotionally vulnerable position right after an accident and need money quickly. And the low offer, when delivered professionally and politely, doesn't feel like a lowball. It feels like a bureaucratic process, like math, like something you don't have the standing to question. I also found the Cure insurance case out of Michigan. A woman named Aisha Moore. Her car was totaled. Company declared total loss. She signed over the title, as required. The company sold the car for parts, then reversed the claim decision months later. Never paid her a cent. By the time she had legal help, the car was gone, and she was fighting for payment they technically already received from a salvage buyer. I sat back in my chair and I thought, I need to find out exactly how far this company is willing to go. I did not sign over the title. That fact alone may have saved me thousands of dollars. But I didn't know that yet. What I needed now was someone who knew the rules better than they did. Monday morning. First thing, I called an attorney, not a big firm, a local guy who handled insurance disputes. His fee structure, nothing up front, 33% of any recovery above the initial offer. Meaning if he couldn't beat their number, he didn't get paid, and neither did I. That structure told me everything I needed to know about whether he thought this case was winnable. He was thorough. He asked for everything I had: the police report, the photos, the denial letter, Tyler's phone number, every email. He also asked me something that surprised me. Had I ever been asked to provide a recorded statement? I said yes. Tyler had asked for one in week 2. I gave it. He got very quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Tell me exactly what you said." Here is something almost nobody tells you when you're standing at the side of the road after a crash. You are not required to give a recorded statement to the other driver's insurance company. You are generally required to cooperate with your own insurer. But the other side? That's different. And anything you say in that statement, any imprecision, any uncertainty, any off-the-cuff guess about timing, can be used to shift partial fault onto you. In my case, Tyler had been from my own insurer, but he had recorded the conversation. My attorney listened to the recording I'd kept on my phone, because I had started recording every call after day 3, by instinct. And he found 2 moments where Tyler had guided the conversation in a specific direction. Questions that weren't technically improper, but that were clearly designed to introduce ambiguity. My attorney sent a formal appraisal demand letter 3 days later. Certified mail. Return receipt. That letter changed everything about how the company communicated with us from that point forward. The first adjuster call I got after the appraisal demand was not from Tyler. It was from someone I'd never spoken to. A different name. A different tone. Less polished. More careful. That's when I knew we'd hit something. Now let me pause again. Because what was happening in my case has a specific legal name. And understanding that name changes how you see the entire insurance industry. It's called insurance bad faith. In the United States, insurance companies have a legal duty, not just a contractual one, but a legal one, to deal with their policyholders fairly. That duty is called the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing. And when an insurer violates it, when they delay without reason, deny without basis, or lowball in a systematic way, that's not just a dispute. That's potentially actionable. The most recent case that made national news involved a man named Timothy Kuhn in Nevada. He was rear-ended while sitting still in highway traffic. His own insurance company initially said he was not at fault. Then, when he filed for damages from a traumatic brain injury, that same company intervened in his lawsuit and argued in court that he was actually partially responsible. Their first settlement offer was $10,000. His policy limit was $250,000. In February of 2025, a Nevada jury awarded him $114 million, $100 million in punitive damages alone, because the jury wanted to send a message. My case wasn't going to end in a $114 million verdict. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But the principle is identical. And my attorney knew how to use that principle. Because the second an insurance company believes you understand bad faith law, the entire dynamic of negotiation changes completely. 3 weeks after the appraisal demand, the company responded, not with an agreement to appraise, with a letter. The letter claimed that my attorney's demand contained a technical error in the formatting of the appraisal request, and therefore they considered it invalid. My attorney laughed when he read it, not because it was funny, because it was textbook. He said, "They do this when they know they're going to lose the appraisal. They stall. They find any administrative reason to invalidate the demand and force you to start over." He sent a corrected demand the next day, certified mail, overnight. 2 weeks after that, they sent a new letter requesting I submit to an examination under oath, an EUO, which is a formal legal deposition-style process that insurers can request during a claim investigation. They're allowed to do this. It's in most policies. But the timing tells you everything. They weren't investigating the accident anymore. They were looking for a reason, any reason, to deny the claim on new grounds. My attorney prepared me for 3 days before the EUO. Answer what's asked. Don't volunteer. Don't guess. Don't fill silence. The EUO lasted 2 hours. I said very little beyond what I knew with certainty. At the end of the second hour, the examiner said, "We'll be in touch within 30 days. My attorney leaned over and whispered, "They've got nothing. We'll hear in 10 days. We heard in 8. Day 213 from the date of the accident. My attorney called me at 9:17 in the morning. He said, they settled. The number was $16,400 against their original offer of $8,750. That's an increase of $7,650, nearly double the initial offer, without ever going to court. They also covered rental car expenses for 61 days, which they had stopped paying at day 30, citing a clause in the policy that they had initially cited incorrectly. Total, including rental reimbursement and the attorney's fee calculation, I received approximately $12,800 net, against the $8,750 they had been insisting was final for 7 months. They did not apologize. There was no call from Tyler or from anyone I recognized, just a settlement letter, my attorney's instruction to sign, a check. I stood in the parking lot of my attorney's office after picking up the paperwork, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Not happiness exactly, just a very quiet sense of having held the line, of having refused at every single step to be someone they could dismiss. Because here's what I've come to understand about that whole 7 months. They were never betting that their offer was fair. They were betting that I would give up. The math of insurance of bad faith only works when the majority of people accept the first offer. And the majority do. Because they don't know they can fight it. I bought a 2019 Accord the following spring. Sonic Gray Pearl. 44,000 miles. And before I drove it off the lot, I went home and I read every single page of my new insurance policy, including page 11. The appraisal clause. I know exactly where it is now. Looking back on all of it now, the thing that strikes me most isn't the money. It's how the whole system is designed to feel like it isn't designed. The polite adjuster, the professional tone, the third-party software, the technical objection to the appraisal demand. None of it feels deliberate when you're inside it. It feels like process, like bureaucracy, like neutral, impersonal systems doing neutral, impersonal things. But that's the psychological trap powerful institutions use all the time. They make their behavior look systematic so that pushing back feels irrational, so that the person who questions the $8,750 offer feels like they're the unreasonable one, like they're making things complicated, like they should just accept it and move on. The lesson here is not just about cars or insurance. It's about what happens when you encounter a system that has quietly decided that your time and energy are worth less than the money they save by hoping you won't fight. The only working response is documentation, patience, and the specific knowledge of what rights you actually have. According to standard procedure, every insurance policy in the United States contains an appraisal clause. From a legal perspective, submitting a bad faith complaint to your state insurance commissioner costs you nothing and creates an official record. And psychologically, the moment a company believes you understand the rules as well as they do, you stop being the easy mark. So now, I'm curious. If you had been in my position, what would you have done? Would you have accepted the $8,750 and moved on? Would you have hired an attorney immediately? Or would you have tried to fight it yourself without legal help first? Drop your answer below, because honestly, the answer says a lot about how most of us are taught to deal with systems that are counting on our silence.